be able to follow. So thanks for joining this webinar. We will talk today, shortly this afternoon, about optimizing the consolidation with CCH Tagetik. First of all, a very few slides. So my name is Frank Lehoek. I'm partner at element61. Together with my 60 somewhat colleagues, we assemble around 820 years of experience, which comes down to a KPI of 13 years per consultant, which is quite high. So we are a very senior team in our profession. At element61, we are organized around 3 competences. All 3 really have the goal to support organizations to achieve the most with their data. First of all, we have our data science and strategy competence center, which is supporting customers in the world of big data, Internet of Things, and artificial intelligence developments. Our BI and data warehouse colleagues are really enabling organizations to do enterprise reporting and grant access to, on a governed way, to enterprise information. And finally, within my own CPM department, we support the integrated processes of business planning, budgeting and forecasting, next to consolidation, compliance reporting. And we do so for different departments such as finance, HR, marketing, and operations. We are very proud at element61 to be recognized by CCH Tagetik as a platinum partner, and we see this really as a merit for the successful implementations of applications that we realized with our customers, of which you see most important ones on the slide. Today, finance is really challenged, I think. There are increasing demands for more strategic insights. There's more demand for integrated financial and operational data, ever more stringent regulatory demands, and a strive for further automated processes, albeit enabled by new technologies such as artificial intelligence or predictive modeling. Now, how does Tagetik respond to that? Tagetik puts forward the finance transformation platform, which is principally a finance-owned platform, but it goes beyond what we see the traditional CPM solutions offer. So the Tagetik finance transformation platforms really enables integration, not only of the typical CPM processes, such as the financial consolidation and close, budgeting and forecasting, but also regulatory reporting, like IFRS reporting, and profitability and advanced analytics. All of that on a combination of finance and operational data on a very granular level, and on top of a platform that allows leveraging automation also by AI and predictive capabilities. So I promised you in the invite hands-on demo, so that's what we will do. This afternoon we'll talk about revitalizing consolidation within CCH Tagetik. 4 main topics: a view on agile analysis, consolidated cash flow, segment reporting, and comprehensive reporting. So without further ado, let's step into Tagetik. I will approach Tagetik via a web page. So I'm logging into that. There we go. And I land into my process landing page. Now, this is my personal page, which means that the tiles which I have put on here are for me personally. So I have put in some shortcuts to my reports, to my processes, which you can simply do by clicking here and including additional or deleting redundant short links, basically. Okay, if I click out of that. Today we will talk about only one process, the consolidation and closing process. So when I click on this tile, I will actually step into my process. So now today I'm in the role of a consolidator, And we are looking at actuals 2018-12, so the December closing of 2018 actuals across the group. What we see left at the bottom is an overview of the steps structure that we have in our closing or in our reporting procedure. We start with a trial balance, intercompany matching, in parallel with some supplementary info, disclosures, and journals. At the top left, per step, as a consolidator, you have the overview of who is doing what and who are we, where are we as a group. So clicking on any of the graphs will highlight in the right column the selection of those people that are in this step. So New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles are within the trial balance, which is the first step, already in progress. There are a lot of companies, other affiliates, who didn't even start yet. Okay, so like this, you really have a comprehensive overview of how your group is really doing. So as an example, let's step into one of the steps. I clicked on the trial balance, which is the first step. And what you see opening up in the middle of the screen is a workflow. This is principally the workflow that every entity, if I would log in as an individual entity, maybe only having access to New York, in the left column, I would only see my entity New York with my workflow. Now being the role or acting as in the role of a consolidator, I actually see the full group, so the full organization with all workflows. Typically, the New York workflow would be the responsibility of the New York accountant, and maybe me as a consolidator, when I'm done at the end, I could submit the full workflow. In this setup, we are in Conso, so it's logical that the workflow is addressed affiliate by affiliate or reporting unit by reporting unit. In other processes, such as budgeting, this could be cost centers, or sales forecasting, this could be sales managers. Okay. Let's dive into another step, supplementary info, and let's take the angle of New York. If we click on the entity contribution report, we see that we get two choices, either to open this in web or open this in Excel. I will now choose for the Excel, which will download an Excel file for me and log me into the Tagetik Excel client. We'll give that a minute. It's retrieving its data, and there we have the report. This report is principally me as a New York entity. I have loaded or inputted my statutory data. I have committed some journals to come to a group GAAP, and I have committed some additional journals to actually come to IFRS GAAP. So this Tagetik really allows multi-GAAP reporting. Depends on how you organize the categories of data. Okay. If we would, because this is the first topic, how can we agile and analyze data in Tagetik? One of the nice things around Tagetik, if we would double click on the 6 million current assets, I see that I get a drill down option available. And there are several options to drill down. We will navigate through the most important ones during the demo. Let's start with the standard drill, and I will select to see the underlying accounts by pivot. No, let's go for the lowest level. That's what I wanted to show. Maybe not by pivot, but just in a list. So this drill down will actually open up the current assets that we selected, show me the total amount, the breakdown for the underlying dimensionality, which today is really the underlying accounts, because I'm acting now as New York, so there's only one entity active. And it gives me something quite interesting, because it also shows me the origin of the data. So some data was inputted by an input form, data entry form manually. Some data has originated from a mapping, which is basically an upload. It tags me the user and the date or the timestamp when this actually happened. Okay, so quite interesting audit stamp and audit trail underlying the data, basically underlying all of that data. If we do the same thing on the P&L side, income statement, sales revenue, statutory data, again, double click on it. Now maybe let's go for the pivot table and choose the standard, not the standard level, but the lowest level elements from a dimension perspective. If we hit there, the start button, it will now open up my 39 million against the underlying detail. I get a lot of detail, so maybe employees, miscellaneous, and cost centers, I'm not really interested. But the rest I am, which is basically my accounts, my products, and my customers. So again, this opens up a quite long list now in a pivot mode, which is quite flexible for my total of 39 million. And I can easily analyze, maybe I don't interested in the accounts, but want to see for which products actually were bought by which customer. So typical pivot-like analysis. So quite strong capabilities there to analyze very quickly the data. Now we saw that we did not only have the possibility to go in Excel, but also in web. So also in web, the same report, the report only exists once in Tagetik, but you can deploy it either in Excel, either in web. And also here, we can do similar analysis. If we look at the income statements, you go to the analysis tab. I'm going to drill anywhere. We will get an overview, category, entities, time, but maybe give me some additional, because this product customer analysis that I've just seen is quite interesting. I want the details on that. If I hit OK here, again, I can analyze by product, by customer, not really interested in the accounts or in the scenario. So Walmart products, and if I want a quick overview of where are my most important amounts, I can highlight them automatically. So there's quite some flexibility to do analysis, both in Excel as in web. Web has a bit more limited drill down capabilities than in Excel, but still it's quite powerful. Okay. So that was a first peek. Now, if we step a little bit further in the process, we looked at the entity contribution for New York, which means that the steps of trial balance, intercompany matching, we saw that this morning are already done. We will now continue with implementing or updating maybe some drivers. As a next step, we will open this again in web. What we see is that for some specific cost centers, accounting, financing, marketing, we have identified some specific drivers, KPIs, square footage or number of contracts, which we are asked to complete. Now, in this case, this is already done. And in the second allocation, we'll work with data which we already reported, being by customer, by product group, our sales revenue. Now, these two drivers, one already automatically populated, one manually updatable, we will now use in an allocation routine. So for accounting, let's check the square footage is on 1,900. If we click out of that, run the allocation, you can see a process has started. It's already complete, so we can close out of that one and directly go into the profitability analysis. Let's open this one in web again. New York, December. I will go for the cumulative amount, 2018 actuals. And this will actually show me what has happened with my allocation routines and my drivers. So we have a total of rent, which is 26,000, which is actually the rent from my shared service cost center. which I want to allocate using the driver square footage. We recognize our accounting cost center with 1900 square meters office space. So accounting will take 18% of the total of 10,000 square meters and thus receive from shared service, which is emptied out to zero and allocated across the cost driver cost centers. Okay, if we drill on this one, we can see that we received 5,000 on the rent account. Our partition was 1900 in a total of 10,000 square meters. So this is actually a recording in the form of a journal, which is taking place in Tagetik. So you can actually very easily also analyze the result of these allocations. Similar things can happen with the different expenses. Only in our case, our shared service does not really carry any of those expenses, so nothing will happen there. A similar thing can happen with allocation towards products and customers. We have a part of the revenue or part of the cost which actually sits on generic product data, which we will drive across but I see we have a problem with the allocation percentage because it's not fully emptied out. So probably my drivers are not fully covered, but allocating the generic expenses and revenue to the products and to the customers across the revenue that we actually declared on those customers and products. Okay, so quite powerful to not only enable financial, but typically also management-wise reporting. Of course, these allocations are quite customer specific. There are a number of allocations that we can think of. And to show actually what we would like to end up with, or what we see at a lot of customers as the end result of that is really allocating towards a product and customer profitability. So if I open up this report, period of December, let's take all customers, and we are again probably visualizing 18 actuals. So this would be a typical report, what could be the end result of an allocation where we look at customers across products or types of products and really analyze profitability. So sales, cost of sales, gross margin per customer and per type of business. So allocations obviously are really fitted at customer desire, but this is typically where you want to go towards in more operational or management-like reporting. So let's now continue more on the financial reporting. Again, I'm not obliged to only work through the workflow. Tagetik has a full-fledged Excel client. You see we are in native Excel. Tagetik adds its own ribbon to that. We go into navigation because we would like to seek some of our reports. Maybe not all reports are attached to the workflow to do some reporting. And typically we organize these reports in a process way. So you have audit reports, closing, consolidation, allocation. Let's now step back into the topic of today, which is principally consolidation, and open up one of our consolidated reports, balance sheet, income statement. Clicking on this one, I can choose my consolidation scenario. I'll go for 2018 actuals and December. And I get an overview of the consolidated income statement. Okay, so what I see is my income statement across all my entities, and I see my trial balance. If I continue to the right, we see a total trial balance position, and from there we actually see other types of other categories of data, a total entity or total group position on the adjustments, the local contribution, and from here we see actually consolidation eliminations. One of those is intercompany, or we are looking at P&L. So obviously an important one will be intercompany elimination all the way through to a total contribution for sales. As we already saw, double clicking on the amounts can give us some neat results. Intercompany elimination. One of the typical analysis we want to do there is we saw every entity's contribution. In this report, we present the elimination on a group level. So I would be interested in seeing and understanding which companies are actually involved in this intercompany elimination. So this time I'll go for the standard drill. Let's choose all of the entities and maybe do that in pivot mode again. Probably that will give us a nice, or maybe not, a nice overview. It can maybe be more handy by going into the list. We see that total intercompany eliminations end up at 10 million. That's where we started from. We see all of the entities that actually contribute to the elimination. And what is neat is that within a drill, we see the drill is again activated, which means that there is some underlying info that we still have at our hand. So if I go into New York, maybe I want to see the underlying details of that elimination. Going into the headers, which is typically for journal info, I will see now the full elimination. So I'm going into the header of intercompany elimination, and I actually see the counterpart elimination journal between New York, Rome, New York, and Wellington. So I see the full journal or the full elimination of New York and its counterparts. But when I click on one of the rows, I see that my drill is still activated, so I can go even further, stepping into a main journal. So line per line, I can now dive into the individual. Maybe let me put some free space on here, on the individual booking. So if I make this a little bit broader, voila. In New York, I have between New York and Rome, that's the line I drilled on before, I have the full intercompany elimination booking. Yeah. So this is really the transaction that Tagetik booked on this intercompany elimination. Going back, this is where we came from. We had 25,000 between New York and Rome, and we go even further back because we actually started from the full intercompany elimination on sales. So by this, via this drilling, you can really reveal a lot of the info that is behind a somewhat aggregated report from time to time. If you go really crazy, we have the net P&L total contribution. What happens if we click on this? Also there, we can see a full drill down opening up. Let's go into pivot mode because I would like to see a lot of things, maybe the entities, the categories, and that's probably already interesting to see because now I'm looking at my net result consolidation contribution, and I can actually decompose it because I can, for each entity, which I dragged in my analysis, for each category, so original data, IFRS adjustment, IC elimination, another elimination, equity pickup, I see the amounts in original currency, and I see the amounts in consolidation currency. So this is really a full breakdown of my consolidated net result by entity and by audit type or category of data in local currency and in consolidated currency. And this in a pivot table, which allows quite flexible playing around with, okay? So quite powerful. Let's step into a balance sheet tab, maybe in consolidation a bit more interesting. We see on the common stock, now we see a different approach because here we saw, but that's free of choice in your reporting buildup. Here we saw entity by entity trial balance, so statutory data. In this balance sheet approach, we combined everything on the total group level and just open up the categories of data, the journals, to give you transparency into that. So Again, on my common stock, my share capital, I would like to see how everything got eliminated. And in this case, common stock, I have an active, on the account, I have an active formula, which means that common stock is really a reporting line. I have more detail underneath my common stock. So if I also drag my accounts into the analysis, I end up with, I should have chosen, I'm more fan of the pivot. So let's do that again. All entities, all categories and accounts, and step into pivot mode. Then I will actually see a breakdown of my 3 million capital, again, by entity, by category of data, by underlying accounts, the total position, okay? So even if we are on a high level report, not only the full group, but also on a reporting line which hides really relevant details underneath, you can also drag that in your analysis. And this, again, the same thing if you would click on a journal. This really takes us into opening or diving into the transactional journal. So the minority by entity gives me this. If I activate Chicago, I see that my drill is again activated. I'm going to go into headers because we are looking into journals. Chicago's minority journal, again activated because I want to go even deeper in the full journal. And this is really the full elimination. Let me put my free space on again. So this is again the full elimination journal that sits underneath Chicago for the minority calculation, okay? So all the originating accounts and the P&L account that give rise to my minority. So this is, if you ask me, quite powerful at the top of your fingers, and really starting from a very high level consolidated report. Again, these reports, you can organize them as you want. What you want to define in your columns, what you want to present in your columns is really your choice. This was a bit of the first topic, to give you a brief insight in how Tagetik allows you to do some agile reporting. The second topic we pointed out was about cash flow reporting, which sits on my next tab. And what I see here is a consolidated cash flow position. So same as we did present the trial balance. So cash flow lines, statutory data, local journals to present the entity contribution, and then the elimination journals to come to a consolidated cash flow position, okay? Now, what we see again here is that in the cash flow depreciation on fixed assets, this could be anything. We really would like to understand how this is composed. So again, we double click on it. I want to see, because I'm consolidated, what are the entities underneath? How does the journal affect this? And I see that for my account, I again have the formula active because there are probably accounts underneath, and that's really what I'm interested in. I'm going to go in pivot mode again, 3,000,002 depreciation, correction in my cash flow. If I hit the drill down, what I get presented is basically for every entity, for every category of data, we saw that before, the origin of my cash flow impact. And what you see it is an account with an extension because it's really a movement account. So it's a movement declared on my balance sheet. So these are really flows, buildings, accumulated depreciation additions, other intangible. This is a generic movement. It's not a good idea to do it like that. So really, from a report which has a reporting line, we can dive into the underlying accounts that are attached to this reporting line. Because Tagetik allows really, with something which is called FST financial statements, to set up a report in a quite intelligent way and allows to group accounts, movement accounts, accounts with cost centers to a report presentation. So let's see this report presentation somewhat as a hierarchy, and you can use this hierarchy to define your cash flow and actually map your cash or non-cash items into these reporting lines. And from the higher level, by drilling down, you can really drive into the underlying detail. Now, this is one thing. It's nice that you can drill down into the underlying detail, but maybe sometimes drilling is annoying. We could perfectly set up the report in any way we want. That's what I already said. Again, I reuse the same FST. So in terms of my reporting lines presentation, I'm at the same high level detail. But now I build it up per reporting unit, per affiliate. And underneath, I even present per affiliate the source of data. So from the statutory data, the reporting adjustments that we made onto it, onto the eliminations per entity, which means that I'm really presenting a cash flow per entity, which is logical because my cash flow is driven by an FST, a template that allows me to group my accounts in such a way to isolate cash and non-cash elements, okay? But this is one presentation. What we still miss is basically the underlying detail. We saw that the underlying detail, by drilling down, we can actually reveal it. Same thing can be done here. But we can also directly present that in a report. If we go to the next step, cash flow details, again, I ordered my columns now differently. We are again at group level and see the sources of data, the types, the statutory data and the eliminations. But now, instead of having only one reporting line depreciation, in the previous step, we started from this 3,000,002. We didn't have any detail underneath until we drilled. In this presentation, I'm presenting you the 3,000,002, but with all the details of my FST. Because to build my cash flow, I actually mapped all of these accounts, which are my cash exceptions that I need to pull from my net income, onto my reporting line depreciation. So you're not only having the detail by double-clicking at it. If you want to visualize it directly in the report, this is also feasible. And this is only done by mapping. So setting up your FST on the cash flow will generate all of these possibilities. There's only one thing to maintain, which is basically the FST statement, which maps whatever accounts or movement accounts that you want to tag to whatever reporting line. In this case, we do this for cash flow presentation. And then this is available by entity, by category of data, and by reporting line with or without all the details in a report or via drill. So this is also on cash flow a very agile way to present it and even to maintain it. All right. Now let's go a little bit further. Next to cash flow, we also wanted to cash flow and analyzing Conso, because this is really what we did. We started from an income statement, we looked into the balance sheet, and then had several flavors of the consolidated cash flow analyzed. Another topic on the agenda talked about segment reporting. So let me open up a report on segment reporting. Again, same thing, actuals consolidation for December. Now, segment reporting needs maybe a little bit of explanation, because it's a powerful reporting functionality of Tagetik that allows to present several consolidations alongside the entity or another hierarchy, but in our case, it's the entity hierarchy, in such a way that running a consolidation on the group will allow you to present sub-consolidations only by looking at nodes in the entity hierarchy. I will go into the web to explain how Tagetik goes about organizing the consolidation. If I click on this Events tab, I go into the ownership structure. I need to choose a process, but I'll go into actuals because we are reporting actuals today. What we now see is all of my entities presented as an owner, so a holding company, and an owned entity with some event types. And we have other, we have initial consolidation, we have step-up acquisitions, and so on. And what we see is that we define in the central investment register or ownership register the relations between holding company and subsidiary, the currencies of both, which are basically attached to the entity, and the consolidation method. From here, Tagetik is capable of understanding our relationships in the group. Yeah. What we then do is, and that's what we saw in the reports. If I open up my filters again, we need to choose a consolidation scenario, and I can do several consolidation scenarios. I'll make this a bit bigger. In the consolidation scenario, you see 2018 actual conso, you see 2018 euro subconso EMEA. So I can define several consolidation scenarios on this ownership register, limiting or identifying the entities that I want to have active in my consolidation. So in my conso scenario, I have everyone. In my subconso scenario, EMEA, I only have the European entities. And I can label the conso scenario with a currency. So the subconso EMEA I express in euro, the full group I express in dollar. So I'm only maintaining my ownership structure once, and I can present a lot of consolidation scenarios. But even within a consolidation scenario, because now I've actually chose 2018 the full group, I can present even more consolidation scenarios based on the organization of my entity dimension. Why, in this case, the entity dimension? Because my entity dimension is driving my conso. Now I'll try to explain how powerful this is by navigating through this report with you. We start on the highest level, contribution tab 1, where we see sales revenue 165, total contribution split up by region. This is because I have an entity hierarchy. Maybe I can try to visualize that, makes it more transparent even. An entity hierarchy that I have organized in regions. So all entities. If I dive into this one, you see regional, North America, USA, and underneath USA I have my entities. Underneath Europe, I have Southern Europe with entities. So this is my hierarchy. I can have one or more hierarchies as I want. This is a regional buildup of my hierarchy. So if I dive back into my report, this is what I see. I see my total group on the hierarchies US, Canada, Southern Europe, Central Europe. And I see a contribution. Now, this is nice, but this report doesn't tell me everything. If I need to understand a bit more on this, I would need to, again, double click on it, as we already saw. And double click on it. If I go into pivot mode, all entities, all categories, I could understand what is underneath here. So 165 sales revenue, consolidated position. If I need to understand this, I see that there's a lot of entities contributing and that there are some original data and some IC eliminations. If I drag this like this, down here, I can see that the total IC elimination is 10,000,002, and the total original contribution was 175. Now, this gives me some insight, but not a lot. So let's go on to a bit deeper. I just present the same report, 165 total contribution on sales, but now per type of data. We indeed saw that the intercompany elimination, which we drilled towards in the previous step, was 10 million too. And now I can do this by region. So I understand that in the US, we have an intercompany elimination of 4 million too. So a report, same thing, but in the columns a little bit opened up towards data categories. Again, if I would need to understand what sits beyond this elimination, I don't have all the info. I know that the US region contributes 4 million too, but I don't have counterpart info, things like that. So let's maybe see in contributive tab 3 what is revealed there. Now I made a report that zooms in only on the intercompany elimination, so this journal only, and only for sales revenue. Yeah, we see for the total group an elimination of 10 million too, which was what we already revealed before, because here sales revenue, total consolidation, I see elimination was 10 million. We saw that, but now I get it by region, US, which was 4 million too total. We already knew that from the previous report, because this one I opened by region and we saw total elimination 4 million too, but still there's more to it. So by region, but also by counterpart. Okay, so now I understand that my 4 million too in the US is 300 with New York, 1 million with Chicago, and so on. What I also see is that Canada has basically an elimination with the US. So there is an elimination between the region Canada and the region US. Because underneath the US, there are still entities. US and Canada, in my organization hierarchy, I grouped them together to North America. So now what segment reporting will allow me to do is really work with this data, because we see that in our North America region with 2 sub-regions, there's actually eliminations within the region, eliminations outside the region, and eliminations between the 2 regions mapped into North America. And this is really the info that we were looking for when we wanted to present segments in a geographical way. Now, it took us 1, 2, 3 tabs to really recollect all the info, but Tagetik allows you to do this instantly. And this is how this segment report works. What we now see is, again, the regional build-up in the columns and the same P&L in the rows. So in the end, we're again sales revenue 165, but now the report is more, it's much more intelligent, because it allows to not just call the US region as we did here, USA, just add it all together, but now US as a segment, Canada as a segment, and North America as the first common parent of those 2 segments. So between US and between Canada, there were some eliminations needed to present North America as a consolidated position. Those 317, we remember that from the previous step, it's basically the elimination that sits between Canada and Los Angeles. Okay, so this is automatically isolated by asking the same report, but now in segment modus. So not just the aggregated region US, but really the segment US. As such, without rerunning any consolidation. So we have only 1 consolidation defined here in the ownership structure. We have defined 2 scopes, 1 for Europe in Euro, 1 for the full group in US. But running the consolidation on the full group in US allows me to even present sub-consolidations on North America and even on Europe. Okay, so quite powerful in terms of reporting. Now, for the last step where we want to talk about the Office suite reporting in capabilities in Tagetik. Let's go back to the report we already saw before, US Consolidation Actuals 2018. We already saw this income statement, also the balance sheet. And what I want to now highlight is that from building these reports in Excel, we can also visualize them in web. We already saw that, but we can also more intelligently reuse those in other Office products. If I look into these named cells, I see that I have named, and this is quite simple. You do this by right-click, define name. I have named this region condensed consolidated balance sheet. Now this report is not only a report, but within the report I have highlighted a section. I can highlight several sections. I have here the income statement, but which is a bit huge. And with those named ranges on those reports, I can now play around in other Office products. Let's start with Word. So if I open up Word, we can see that Tagetik also allows or adds a ribbon into Word. If we log in to Word, I don't need to re-type my password because it's all Office. I go into a report format, which was already prepared upfront into the annual report for 2018. I highlight the financial statements, and this is really a dump. It's not the most neat financial statement, but this is really a dump of all info that I want to present as financial statements. You can actually see, because I can highlight all objects that are not only in Word, but actually sync with Tagetik database. If I highlight those, you will see that Tagetik recognizes what is actually coming from the database. So the cash flow header not, but the data, the table underneath, is actually coming from Tagetik. So this is neat, because this allows me, I'll deactivate the highlight. This allows me to reuse reports which we defined in Excel and which we use maybe in the analysis of the console, but also in another presentation. Now, how do you do that? There are several options. You can insert objects from plain Excel. You can insert objects from Tagetik. This is more powerful, I find, because this is really coming from the database, not from standalone Excels, but you can do combinations because maybe not all your info sits in Tagetik that you want to present in the board report or in the annual report or budgeting presentation and so on. So let's try to add another table right here. We will choose, there's an option, you can do this as a table or as an image. Both options will always refresh the data from Tagetik. The image will, in terms of formatting, not be changeable in Word and is not capable for IXBRL, whereas the table you can actually tag with IXBRL in Word, okay? So this is also quite powerful in terms of regulatory reporting. So let's set up the table. You are asked to give it a code. We'll just give it a quick code. I think it was my balance sheet that I'm going to look for. We will ask to include the data refresh. I have to identify the balance sheet which we want to present. I think it was my consolidated statement. If I click on this one, I recognize my balance sheet, but I can also open this up. And here I see, or I find back, the ranges that we named. Also on the income statement, I had a named range. And it's really only clicking this named range, defining the parameters that were already defined in the Excel report, so that Tagetik understands which point of view you want to take. So again, 2018 actuals, December. Click OK. And now Tagetik is going to look for this report in its database, find it, fetch it in or attach it in Word, and refresh data and formatting. Takes a little bit of time. It's Friday afternoon, so a little bit of patience. It will be there shortly. May take a little bit longer because the report we refer to is a reporting book. We had a large income statement, a large balance sheet and cash flow with a lot of tabs, so it's probably refreshing the full book and then identifying the range that it wants to show us. Still going. So there we go. It's a little bit large, but this is really the report that we ask. I'm looking to narrow it down a little bit. Hold on. Yeah, don't get to it instantly, but this is the exact same report that we pulled up. Let me think, balance sheet. So this report, consolidated balance sheet, we only define this report once in Excel. We can use it in the console. We highlight whatever range that we want from it, and we can pull it into Word. In this case, maybe because the report is quite big, it would have been easier to include it as an image. And that's a little bit the thing you need to be vigilant about. The formatting of the reports, what do you want to present? Does your Word report present in a landscape or in portrait? And then play around a little bit with the report. This report, because it's included as a matrix, is actually formatable in Word. If we would do the same thing, but now read it as an image. So 02, again, my balance sheet, it's the consolidation, sorry, it's this one. My balance sheet condensed, same parameters. Actual consolidation period 12. Oh, I forgot to activate the refresh, so I need to refresh it manually. So I will only refresh this matrix as an image. I will update the formats with it. So now it's going to fetch again the same thing, but as an image, okay? It works a little bit easier because an image is easily sizable, but we don't have IXBRL capabilities on it. Voila, there we go. This is not formatable in Word, but it needs to be formatted in the Excel reporting environment. While this, we can do whatever we want with it. Okay, so if we want to highlight this and format this in Word, this is still possible. Of course, Word is one thing. Now let's try to do the same thing maybe in PowerPoint. Again, I have my login capabilities in PowerPoint. I'm logged in to Tagetik, sorry, database again. Annual report book. Let's go for the finance section again. This is already prepared as a template for us, but now I find this one is not really matching my requirements. I would be more happy to again insert something differently. Let's do the same thing, but now in Word. Oh, so 02 balance sheet. I'm going to hit the refresh this time, so I don't have to do it manually. Consolidated income statement, balance sheet income statement. I'll go for the condensed one. Scenario actuals. December. Hopla, there we go. It will again read the report, refresh it, and attach it in my PowerPoint so that I'm ready to actually, maybe in the PowerPoint itself, give some more comments, and then send it out as a PowerPoint. Voila, there we go. So it's not because this is an image that it doesn't refresh from the database. This is live data, rerunning consolidation. Will update this data, and this is my consolidated balance sheet. So it's still PowerPoint as we know it, condensed. So you can add text, comments, titles to it, and send it out as a PowerPoint or as a PDF even. And data is refreshed, and we are actually reusing reports which in the cycle of our reporting we already defined. Okay. So that was for me the last topic that I wanted to show you. We talked about the analysis capabilities, the cash flow statement, segment reporting, and the Office suite reporting. In the agile analysis, we saw that it's quite easy to, or in the report by determining what you want to see in the report, or by drilling down on the underlying detail, either by origin or by nature of the amounts, we have details at hand. We saw that the cash flow statement is basically maintained by maintaining one financial statement, which is allowing you to group accounts and another dimension, accounts and cost center, for instance. In the cash flow, we actually group accounts and movement accounts to present cash flow statement. We could again present that from a high level, drill down into the lower detail, but also present the full FST, so all the details that we mapped into our cash flow in a report. We saw that with segment reporting, we can actually, from one consolidation scope, in one consolidation run, present different subgroups or different segments in a reporting, so real time without rerunning the conso, just by organizing our dimensionality, and we trigger eliminations at the first common parent in the hierarchy. And finally, we talked about the comprehensive reporting capability. So we are capable of not only reporting in Excel with a native Excel client, those Excel reports can be consumed also in web, but the same reports we can, or parts of the reports in Excel, we can attach them in Word, in PowerPoint, use Word and PowerPoint textually as we are used to, add narratives, and still have the tables, but more importantly, the data refreshed from Tagetik from the central database.